I would tell you a tale. And like all outrageous, unbelievable tales, it's true. For it was the woods battle last summer. And I have fought in many woods battles. But I must tell you, at least two too many. And I have fought in many woods battles. For the warriors in the hall, you know that in the woods battle, you wander into the woods, you make the acquaintance of some nice fellow from the East Realm, he whaps you upside the head, you wander out of the woods. And you do this about 3 times, and I've averaged 3 for a number of years. Well, I lost count at 6 last summer. For lo, you wandered up the hill, and you made the acquaintance of several dozen people from the east all at once, and you rolled down to the bottom and sped the whole process up into the roll. Well, words to that effect. And like Sisyphus, we didn't know when to quit. It was 10 minutes to the end of the woods. For as we know, last summer, some said that Dog ruled the debatable lands, and some said that Suranaga ruled the debatable lands. But in the woods, we all know that Murphy rules.
Oh, yeah.
And I looked about, and there were my braw companions of Eldamere, the North Wolves. Indeed, they were the North Wolves, because they were lying there with their armor off going, and I knew, remember, Murphy rules, if I waited for them, the great noisemaker to the flanks would go off and the battle would be done, and I would not get my chance to strike one more blow for our cause and for our king. So, forth I went, the gallant northern raider. Oh, up the hill. And there, halfway up the hill, is Duke Talamar himself. Talamar. The name strikes fear. For lo, there must be 3, maybe 4 fighters in the entire Mid-Realm and East Realm who do not know the fabled charge of the stag on the black shield. And Talamar was commanding the Mid-Realm army, and he stood halfway up the hill from Resurrection Point, for he knew where the Queen Banner was of the East. And he knew that they would have 200 men guarding it. So he would need 400 men to achieve victory. So he would gather men as they came out of Resurrection Point and say, sit here, kneel here, line up. For when he gathered 400, he would let slip the dogs of war. Thank you. Yes. Unfortunately, the prince was on the left flank and the king was on the right flank. There was a warlord somewhere out there bopping about in the distance. And so he'd have 300 men, and he'd just be getting ready to go, okay, lads. And all of a sudden a runner would come up and say, the king needs 150 men. 150 men stand up and go after the king. And just as he's got the other column ready to roll, the prince needs 100 men. He spent 2.5 hours assembling other people's armies. There were 10 minutes to go. And there was Duke Talamar, wearing a stainless steel helm with a big gold "Hi, I'm a Duke, hit me" band. And an enormous black Talamar warboard. And he stood and he saw 150 braw mid-realm fighters and allied fighters.
Breathing the son of God.
God, period, but we would that it were. He knew that it wasn't enough, but he had to try. And so his grace stood up and said, lads, we have 10 minutes to win this battle and turn around the war. Follow me! And as he said this, forth I went, the gallant northern raider. For you must understand 2 things. 1, I was tired. I was at one of those tireds where I couldn't go any faster and I couldn't go any slower. I just went. And I'm plodding up, me and my faithful old polearm, trudging up the hill, and it just so happened that my trudge placed me beside his grace when he said, follow me! You missed your cue. So to tell it again, when he said, follow me! Thank you. And there it was, a match made in heaven. Big warboard polearm. So, forth we went. Duke Talamar, me, and our 150 men. Now, who's kidding who? It was Duke Talamar's 150 men, and I was sort of there as an afterthought. Put it in operatic terms. He was Tosca. I was the fourth spear bearer from the left. But that's out of period, so I digress. We go marching through the woods. And it was quite inspiring. 150 men behind Duke Talamar. I'm trudging along saying, well, this is neat. And then there was a rustle in the bushes. And 6 guys with blue tape on their helms stepped out. And stepped back into the bushes. And 100 of our fighters turned and followed them.
Hey, he has dry socks.
So forth goes his grace, forth I go, forth goes the remainder of his grace's force. And there's a rustle at the bushes.
Rustle.
And half a dozen guys with blue tape step out of the bushes and step back in, and 50 guys turn on their heels and charge in after them. And there's his grace pressing forward, and I say, excuse me, your grace, where are we going? We're off to take the Queen's banner of the East. So we trudged on a little farther, and we stopped in a little clearing, and his grace turned to me and said, Hector. And I was well flattered, for he knew the name of the fourth spear bearer from the left. And he said, Hector, where is my army? For his grace was in a clearing with his grace, your humble servant, and 4 others. And there was a rustle in the bush. And 3 guys with blue tape stepped out and stepped back, and the 4 turned and went after. When his grace and I stopped laughing, I said to him, what do you want to do? And he said, oh, hell. I have been sending people out after that damn banner of theirs for the last 2.5 hours. I'd like to see their banner. So forth we went, his grace and his faithful sidekick. Uphill, down dale. And we all know how a duke, a knight, and a great general marches through the woods seeking a banner. No, his grace put his sword over his shoulder, held the big black warboard down, and went for a walk. And I threw my axe over my shoulder and went with him. And we went uphill, down dale, and his grace actually turned to me and said, Hector. And I said, yes, your grace. Hector, we are invisible. Nobody expects Duke Sir Talamar to be out for a stroll in the woods. So we go uphill, down dale, and finally we make it to a great, strange yellow ribbon. He said, do not cross. And his grace is nothing if not obedient. So he would not cross, for that was the boundary of the battlefield. And he said, damn, I'm off a little bit on my azimuth. Let us backtrack. So we turned about and came back, and there was a rustle in the bushes. And forth stepped a young eastern squire named Michel de Coucy. And he stepped forward with his spear, leveled it at his grace's abdomen.
Hey, what are you looking at?
And asked a question we had not heard for some time. Are you dead? Now remember, this is Duke Sir Talamar. No, we don't have that. How would he face an uppity young squire with a spear? Very simply, he walked forward, threw his arms wide, and says, hi, I'm Duke Talamar, and I command the entire mid-realm army. There's a spear point right there. There was a rustle in the bushes. 4 other blue tape stepped out. I have taken a few headshots in my time, but I've still got a couple of connections left. And I realized life was about to get very interesting very quickly. And his grace, ignoring the spear point poised over his abdomen, said, now look, we can have it out right here, right now, if you'd like, but it's been a long afternoon. I would really, really, really like to see your Queen's banner. Well, young Esquire de Coucy made to scratch his head, but his helm got in the way. So So he went off into the bushes for a minute and did whatever East Realm squires do in the bushes. Came back, peered deep into the visor of his Grace's helmet and said, "Truce?" And his Grace said, "Oh, yeah, truce, no problem at all." And immediately, the four East Realm fighters stepped forward to young Esquire de Cousy, who obviously was one of the four people who hadn't figured out what the big black board and the stainless steel helmet and the hit-me hat meant, and explained this was Duke Talamar. His word was law, and he was a wonderful chivalrous fighter, and fine. So forth we went. His Grace, trusty sidekick, and a ring of 5 blue fighters escorting us through the battlefield until, lo, there it was. Just over the crest, down a little bit, there was a little clearing, and there, 80 East Realm fighters bored out of their skulls.
Mm-hmm.
Pass the sheep.
You have heard wondrous tales. You have heard beautiful songs. You have heard lovely harping. But I have never heard such music as 80 voices in 17-part polyphonic harmony saying, "Are you dead?" So the ring of 5 parted. And his Grace stepped forward. And remember, gentle friends, a spear is 9 feet long. His Grace strode to within 6 feet of the shield wall that was guarding the East Realm Queen's banner. And he threw his arms wide and said, "Hi, I'm Duke Talamar, and I command the entire Mid-Realm army. And none of you may hit me." Wait. Until he has his poke, for that was the condition of the truce, that young Esquire de Cousy got the first shot at his Grace. So fine, 6 feet out from the shield wall, his Grace rested, calm, cool, collected. As the shield wall opened, and in stepped young Esquire de Cousy. The shield wall swung shut.
Fun.
Thank you. And then de Cousy sidled up behind his shieldman, set himself, engaged his Grace, and threw his shot. And his Grace, being a Duke and a Knight, of course, batted it aside and almost single-handedly attacked the entire Eastern Queen's Banner Guard.
Almost.
Note I said almost. For lo, remember I told you I had a couple connections left? That wasn't one of them. But I am told afterwards that it was a very stirring experience, for as his Grace batted aside the spear shot and charged in, I did my duty and sang him into the line. And I was particularly congratulated for the extemporized last line of the war rant. For as he sat and batted it aside, all the shield wall heard, "One more battle, one more day, one more sword stroke, one more fray, one more arrow flying free, one more charge, then oof, as the spear caught me right there." And remember, gentle friends, that while chivalry is vital, class consciousness is all. For indeed, his Grace charged in first, I charged in behind, but I folded like a deck of cards, giving his Grace someplace soft to land. Well, needless to say, we did indeed both die like bugs. And the East Realm, being the fine fellows that they are, helped us to our feet, dusted us, well, dusted me off. He was pretty clean. And the wall parted, and his Grace strode up to the Queen's Banner of the East, stroked its glorious fabric, and said, "Yeah, I knew it was out here somewhere." And the great cannon went off, and the battle was done. At which point, of course, his Grace reverted from being the martial hero to being a duke. And we all know what that means. He had to schmooze. So he went forth, schmoozing madly, shaking hands, patting back, saying, "Hail, fellow, well met. Like the new red belt, looks good on you," and moving through the crowd. And I, being a stranger in a strange land, followed along mostly out of curiosity. And as we walked along, I heard the most fascinating conversation behind me. As two lads who obviously were not up to date on their heraldry or their marks of rank and regalia said, talked to each other, one said, who's that guy with the big black board, shiny hat with the hit-me band? Why? Well, that's Duke Talamar. He commands the entire mid-realm army. Wow. Who's the guy in the beat-up old red bear tabard? Polar. Pause. The entire mid-realm army. So, this I heard and shall never forget. That by the appellation of my foe on the field of battle, I, Hector of the Black Knight, am a one-man army. And, most important of all, the Archiap Owen, man-at-arms to Hamish mac Welchmy, Esquire to Morgan, now Prince of Athelmark, was hailed through the entire East Realm for the rest of that war and for all time thereafter as the spearman who slew the entire mid-realm army single-handedly. And my lords and my ladies, I know not what else to say but apologize and say, that was what happened. And I thank you.